Hello and welcome back to the Kou Louise Academy YouTube channel. In today's video, we will create our first virtual machine on the VMware Workstation Pro 17.5.2. In our previous video, we went through how we could install the VMware Workstation Pro and how to activate it for free for personal use. So if you haven't seen that video, make sure to check it out. I will leave a link to that video in the YouTube card as well as in the video description down below. But without further ado, let's go right into today's video. So the first thing I want to do is just to open my VMware Workstation Pro. So this is the interface of the VMware Workstation Pro. Right in the middle of the screen, we have three options. 1, to create a virtual machine. 2, to open a virtual machine. And 3, to connect to a remote server. On the left hand side, we have the library, and here we'll have a list of all of the virtual machines that we will be configuring. So they will all be listed in the library. Then up above that, we have the menu. So we have the file menu. So when I click on the file menu, there is the option to create a new virtual machine or to open a new window, or to just open an existing virtual machine, to close a tab, and to configure auto start for virtual machines. So these are different settings that we will have the chance to go through in subsequent videos. Then we have the edit menu where you can edit the VMware network, or you can look at your preferences and set up your preferences, as well as do the regular editing stuff, which is just copy, paste, and cut. Then we have view where you can change the view of the virtual machine. And then on a VM, which is an area we will spend a lot of time, I will create video on how to create snapshot for virtual machine, how to power on virtual machine, how to install the VMware tools, and how to manage the virtual machine, and how to look at the settings and modify the settings of the virtual machines. So those are things that we will be able to do at some point in future video. But what I want to do in today's video is to create our first virtual machine. But before we do that, I will open my web browser. Okay, so as I've opened my web browser, this is an article that was published by Microsoft in January of this year, which is an introduction to Windows Server 2025. So in this first video for our first virtual machine, I will download and install Windows Server 2025. And then in subsequent video, I will configure Active Directory on Windows Server 2025, as well as install and set up other member servers. So I will have one member server. Eventually we have Windows Server 2022. So I can also install a third server that will have Windows Server 2019, just to have different servers within our Active Directory environment. So I will make sure to leave a link to this article where you can come and download Windows Server 2025. So when you come to this article, you will come down to where it has joined the Windows Server Insider program here. So you will click on this link, and then it will open in a new tab, and then you will come down. If you haven't registered for the Windows Insider program, you will come and click on Register Now. So when you click on Register Now, it's going to open, and then you can click on Sign In. So when you click on sign in, you will have to sign in with a Microsoft account. So that can be either your Skype account or your Microsoft email, which could be either Hotmail or Outlook.com. So you can use one of those emails or your Skype ID to sign in and then register for that insider preview. So once you do that, you will be able to download and install the Windows Server 2025. So I'm going to pause the video right now and log into my account, and then I will come back and just walk you through the process. All right, so once you are logged in for the Windows Insider program, so the next thing to do is to download the preview. So when you come to the second tab, which is Preview Windows, you will click on Windows Insider Preview ASO. So you click on that, and then it will take you to the download page. So I will let that to load up. Okay, so once we are taken to the Windows Insider Preview downloads page, what we can do right at the top where you have Windows Insider Preview, I will click on the little drop down arrow. Once I do that, in the list, I will come and click on Windows Server Insider Preview. So I will click that second option. Once I click the second option, now I'm taken to the Windows Server Insider Preview page. So once I'm taken down there, I will now scroll and come to Microsoft Server Previews. So I will click the drop down arrow, and now I have these various previews that I can download. So these are the different versions of Windows Server 2025. The very first option is the ISO image of the Windows Server 2025. The second one is a VHDX downloads. So with this second one, you can download it and just connect it with your Microsoft Windows hypervisor. Or if you want the Azure edition, you can download either the Azure image or the Azure VHDX. So I'm just going to pick the very first option, which is the Microsoft Server VNext Preview ISO. So you click that, and then you click on Confirm. Once you click on Confirm, it brings up the language, and then you can click the drop-down arrow, and you can select the language. So this will be the language that you will be installing the operating system in. So for me, I'm an Anglophone, so I will just pick English, United States. So you pick that option and you click on Confirm. And once you do that, after selecting your language and you do that, then you have now the option to download. So once you click on Download now, it's going to download the particular language version of Windows Server 2025 that you selected. I have already downloaded this, so I'm not going to click on download, but you can make sure to download it. And then once it is downloaded, you can continue with the next step. So I'm just going to minimize my browser. I will close this tab. Then the next thing is the system requirements. I love to always look at the system requirements just because you want to make sure that your hardware meets the minimum system requirements, so that when you are installing an operating system, regardless of the operating system that you are installing, you don't want to run into errors in terms of hardware not being fully compatible, or at least your hardware not meeting minimum system requirements. So I want you to get into that habit mentally of always familiarizing yourself with the hardware requirement for a particular operating system that you want to install. So when we come to this page, again, I will make sure to leave a link to the hardware requirement in the video description down below. So we have different components for our hardware. The first one is the CPU, which is the central processing unit. So for the minimum system processing unit speed, we need 1.4 gigahertz, and it should be a 64-bit processor. Nowadays, all the computers around are 64-bit. Hardly would you find a computer that is 32-bit. So at least your computer will meet this requirement. Additional requirement or other requirement is the DVD drive. The system should support UEFI boot and TPM, which is the Trusted Platform Module, keyboard and mouse, internet access. This is if applicable. The next area we have is the random access memory. So if we are installing the operating system as server core, which is command line, we need a minimum of 512 megabytes. But if we are installing it as a full GUI, which is also called desktop experience, we need at least 2 gigabytes of memory as minimum system requirement. Then we look at the storage. We need at least a 32 gigabyte of free storage. And then we will need a network interface card if we need to access the network or the internet. So when you look at these system requirements, it's very similar to what we used when we were installing Windows Server 2022. One thing you'll notice with the server operating system is for newer version of the operating system, There will just be some additional changes, but most of the core principles and core technology will always be consistent. Like DHCP will always be your DHCP, DNS, Active Directory, all of those things, file server, web server, all of those standards, features will still be the same, except for some little tweaks here and there. I'm sure now with artificial intelligence, so they will build this 2025 to also incorporate the use of Microsoft Copilot and those kind of things. So again, I will leave a link to this hardware component so that you can just familiarize yourself with it. So I'm going to head over to my VMware Workstation. And so I'm just going to click on this in the middle of the screen. Click on Create a New Virtual Machine. So for the new virtual machine, at the Welcome Wizard, we have two options, either typical, which is recommended, or custom. So we'll just keep it to typical and just go next. So at this stage, we want to either connect right now to our ISO, or we can install the operating system later. If you remember in our Windows Server 2022, when we connected the ISO during this stage, during the installation, it failed. So I will just stick to installing the operating system later and just go to next. At this stage, we will select the operating system that we're going to install. Since we are going to install Server 2025, we will keep the guest operating system to Microsoft Windows. And then for version, we will drop down this arrow and look for Server 2025. So right now, there is no Server 2025. I'm just going to pick Server 2022 because I'm sure that it will be able to install on that. So I will pick Server 2022. And then I will go to Next. So for this place, I'm going to change the name to... So at this stage, for the name of my server, I will just say Win SVR Server 2K25. And this is our first server, so I will just add 01 to the name. So I will keep the default location and then click Next. For the hard drive, I can just put 100 gig. It doesn't really matter. And then for this second option, split virtual machine into multiple, I will just keep it to split virtual disk into multiple files. And then I will click Next. And then by default, it's selected 2 GB of RAM for me. That's fine. If I want to customize these settings, I can always click on Customize Hardware. I will click on Finish. And I can also do it later. So once I do that, the virtual machine has been created, but there is no operating system yet on this virtual machine. Yeah, what I just want to do is just to click on the CD DVD and I'll browse for my ISO. Remember, I selected the option to install operating system later. So I'm just going to go for my ISO. So this is the ISO that I downloaded of the Server 2025. I'm going to click on Open. So it's going to connect the ISO to this. I will just click on Option to just see what are some of the things on an option. So everything seems to be fine on an option. So I'll just click on OK. Now that I have everything connected, the next thing I can do is, so you can also click on Edit Virtual Machine to come back to those settings where you can upgrade the memory. For example, if I wanted to upgrade the memory, I could upgrade the memory from here. So 2 GB of RAM is okay. That's the recommended. And the maximum I can go is 13. I'm not going to the max. Okay, I can just put it to 4 GB. Just because my computer has 16 gig, I can put it to 4 so as to speed up the installation process. So I'll put it to 4 GB of RAM. For the processor, I think the 2 processor is fine. I can just put 2 cores per processor. And these are fine for now. So I can click on OK. And then I can click on Power on this virtual machine. So I'll click on Power on this virtual machine. I will click on OK. And now it's going to power on a virtual machine. So I'm going to click on OK. So you press any key to boot from CD. Oh, I didn't press it in time. It timed out anyways. So I will press Ctrl-Alt to release the mouse from in the virtual environment. I can come right down to the power and say restart guest. So I'll click restart guest and click on restart. I'm going to double click here, press Enter key to boot from CD. Now it's going to boot from the CD. So I'll let that to load up. So let us give it a few seconds. So I'm just going to come out and make it full screen. Yeah, so I did a free stretch. So they have that to stretch up so that you can be able to see it. So language to install, I downloaded English United States, so that is fine. Time and currency format is English United States. So I'm in Canada. I will just see if there is English Canada. So I'll go up, English Canada. So I'll pick my time and currency format for English Canada. I will click on next. For my keyboard, I'm using US keyboard, so I'll keep it to that. So make sure to pick the keyboard that you are using, and I'll click on next. So on this next option, we have two to either install Windows Server or to repair PC. We don't have the operating system installed yet, so we're going to keep it to install Windows Server. This is a fresh installation, so we will choose I agree. Everything will be deleted, including files, apps, and settings. Again, this is a brand new installation. There is nothing on the hard drive, so there is nothing to be afraid of. Choose that option and click next. And now it's asking us to put in the product key, so we can just choose this option. I don't have a product key, so I'll click that and give it a few seconds. And these are the various editions of Windows Server 2025 that we can install. So it's pretty similar to Windows Server 2022. So we can either install the standard edition or the standard desktop experience. Then we'll get data center and we'll have data center desktop experience. So with these two, standard desktop experience and data center desktop experience, these versions or editions, I should say, will install the operating system with the graphical user interface. And these ones will install the operating system as a command line. And then we'll go to next. And then it brings up the license agreement. We scroll down. You have the time. You can read it. I'm just going to accept. Yeah, scan and find the hard drive. So I'm just going to install on this one hard drive. So I'm just going to go to next. It's going to format the hard drive and perform the installation for us. So right now we have a summary of the things that are going to be done. It's going to install the Windows Server 2025 Data Center Desktop Experience Edition, and it's going to keep nothing. So it's going to format the hard drive and install the operating system. We are fine with those, and we just click on install. So the installation has started. I'm going to pause the video and let that to install. And once that is done, we will come back and log into our Windows Server 2025. So as we can see, the installation process is very similar to the installation that we did of Windows Server 2022. But we'll take a look at 2025 and just see what it is like and what it's up to. How's the interface? What are some of the changes? Those are things that we will do once the installation has completed. So again, I will see you later. All right, so we are taken to this screen to enter in our product key. So we're just going to choose the option at the bottom left, do this later. So I'll click that. By default with Windows Server installation, the default user that is created is administrator. So we just need to create a password for that user account. So I put in my password and I confirm my password and I click on finish. So I'll give it a few seconds and allow that to complete. So now we have completed. So when you are here, come at the top and you click on VM and then you click on send, Control, Alt, and delete. So when you click this option, it's going to activate the password screen. So I'll put in my password and I'll press enter. And it's going to create my profile for the first time since I'm logging in, and it's going to log me in to Windows Server 2025. So let us give it a few seconds and allow that to complete the installation process. Oh, wow. So looking at the interface, it looks very, very similar to Windows 11. Now we have the option to send diagnostic data to Microsoft. I would just say include optional. Again, choose whatever you want. This is a test environment, so it doesn't really matter to me. So I'll click on accept. So here we have our server dashboard. Again, similar to Windows 11 with the start button in the middle of the screen. So yeah, so this is how we install Windows Server 2025. All right, so this brings us to an end of today's video. So that was a quick installation of Windows Server 2025. As you can see from the interface, it looks very similar to Windows 11, especially for the taskbar and the start menu. But again, same server, similar server interface to Server 2022. So without further ado, I would see you in the next video. But make sure to subscribe if you haven't subscribed to the channel. Share this video with someone who will find this video useful. Leave a like, leave a comment, you know all of those stuff. But I will catch you in the next video. Take care. Bye for now.